Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining our UAS committee meeting with it. My name is Halil Ceylan, and I serve as the chair of the Uncrewed Aerial Systems Committee. This committee is under ASCE T&DI, Transportation and Development Institute, and it's one of our quarterly meetings. We are actually joining you from Atlanta, Georgia. That's when this International Conference on Transportation and Development is going on. And again, for joining us today. And so we will go through a few slides introducing our officers and, background, the focus, objectives of the committee. And then we do have an outstanding speaker who's going to talk about how actually drones can be used for bridge inspections. And then we will have additional discussion towards the end of our committee. So thank you again for joining. And we can continue with the slides, Blaine. So you can see the meeting agenda here. As I mentioned, we will do the committee introductions, and you may have it's from the T&DI leadership. And then we'll have a presentation, as I mentioned earlier, on Hewitt Avenue Bridge, securing the Areaways, and it will be presented by Daniel Enrico. He's a principal engineer, transportation at City of Everett, Washington. And then we'll have some group discussion on industry news, and then we'll have some discussion with our committee members, and then we'll have closing remarks. So if you can help us reach out to you and fill out the sign-in sheet to this meeting, and by listing your contact information, we greatly appreciate it. So you can actually provide this information in the meeting chat box. If you can please write down your name, affiliation, and email addresses, we greatly appreciate it. And we will actually monitor the chat box, and this will be attendance if you're attending, for example, for the first time. So we will actually add your contact information to inform you about our future activities. So if you can provide this information again, name, affiliation, and email addresses in the chat box, we greatly appreciate it. So thank you. And in terms of the committee leadership introductions, we'll cover again, in upcoming the slides. And starting with myself, and again, my name is Halil Ceylan. I'm a professor at Iowa State University. I'm a distinguished member of ASCE. I've been at Iowa State University for 22 years. And I serve as the director of the Program for Sustainable Payment Engineering and Research, PROSPER. I also serve as the ISU Site Director for FAA Center of Excellence on General Aviation, Partnership to Enhance General Aviation Safety, Accessibility, and Sustainability, Pegasus. We actually just had our annual meeting last week at the FAA Tech Center in Egg Harbor Township in New Jersey. And I've been involved with a large number of research projects, including utilization of UAS, uncrewed aircraft systems, drones for infrastructure health monitoring. That's where my, the main interest is in utilizing drones for inspecting, any type of transportation infrastructure system. But mainly, my research has been on the airfield and highway pavement inspection sites. And again, I've been fortunate enough to get involved with over 140 research projects. We greatly appreciate all the support and guidance provided by our funding agencies. Next is our vice chair.
Yeah, I'll introduce myself. We're going to start my video so you can see me. Yeah, my name is Blaine Ruck. I am vice chair of the UAS committee. I'm a senior transportation engineer at Deschutes County Road Department. We're a small road department in Central Oregon in a county of about 200,000 people. Yeah, and as part of my role, I manage our capital improvement projects. I also manage our UAS program at the county. So I'm in charge of training pilots, managing our softwares and workflows and data. and I'm trying to use drones to streamline processes within my role for construction inspection, preliminary engineering work, and other variety of tasks. So yeah, pleased to be a part of this committee, and pleased to be here at ICTD and virtually with you all. So yeah, I'll turn it over to our next committee officer, Ed Bartels.
Good afternoon. Hope everybody can hear me. Really happy that we have a turnout here. I was hoping to be in Atlanta, but I have a couple of...
Ed, are you with us?
Yeah, can you not hear me?
Can you hear Ed? Go ahead, please. Ed, can you introduce yourself? Thank you.
Okay, it looks like Ed may be having some technical difficulties. But yeah, Ed, it is a great member of our committee. He serves as the secretary. He's assistant county engineer at the Johnson County Secondary Roads Department in the state of Iowa. And he's actually a drone user as well, and uses drones for asset inspections within his agency. And he's actually presented at ICTD, excuse me, at past events on some of his work, particularly for bridge inspections. And so it's really great to have him as part of the committee, and he's a huge asset to us. And our next committee officer, Wei Lin. Wei, I'll let you unmute and introduce yourself.
Hi, this is Wei Lin. I'm a PhD candidate in transportation engineer program at the University of Cincinnati, and I serve as community outreach coordinator. My research expertise lies in the area of ITS, including cooperative traffic operation, safety, sustainability, and artificial intelligence applications with transportation automation. And before my journey to pursue a PhD degree, I worked as a licensed safety engineer at Fudu Airline in China for 3 years, with certificates of civil aviation enterprise and enterprise safety management, civil aviation safety investigation training, and ISO 9001 internal auditor. And I led and participated in many audits such as IATA operational safety audits, international audits, and company level safety audits. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
So you've heard from our committee officers, and again, it's been a great joy and honor working with them over the years, and I greatly appreciate all of their hard work and contributions to get our, the committee activities done. And you can see our contact information here, our email addresses and phone numbers. And again, I serve as the chair, and Blaine is the vice chair, Ed is secretary, and then Wei is helping us with our committee outreach activities. We also have an email address for our committee. And if you would like to, again, communicate with us, you can, email us and call us. And, we have quarterly meetings like this one. And again, the 2 of our meetings in a hybrid format, and, others are 100%, the virtual. So we'd love to hear from you, and, stay engaged, with our committee activities members. And on this slide, you can see the committee mission statement. This is one of the relatively new committees. I was attending one of these conferences several years ago in Philadelphia, and then T&DI president mentioned that they would like to get additional committees in these new and emerging technologies. And I submitted an application, and that's how this committee was established several years ago. So we've been operational for the past 6-7 years. And, as stated in here, the goal was to develop a roadmap and serve as a forum for the exchange of ideas and knowledge among users, researchers, engineers from academia, industry, and government with interest in the development of UAS technologies and their applications in transportation management. And we've been actually very successful hosting a good number of committee meetings and organizing sessions at ICTD events. We greatly appreciate again all of your contributions and getting involved with our committee work. So this one, please. And so we do not have any officers from the T&DI right now, but that this is an annual. This year's conference is going to be again in June. It will be in Arizona. And we actually solicited papers related to UAS applications in transportation engineering. So if you would like to contribute a technical paper presentation, so just watch out for announcements from ASCE and T&DI for next year's event. And next year, International Airfield and Highway Payments Conference will be co-located with the International Conference on Transportation and Development. So we'll certainly have a larger crowd for next year's event in Phoenix. And exact dates is going to be somewhere around this time in early to mid-June in Arizona.
Yeah, so with those opening thoughts out of the way, we'll go ahead and introduce our technical presentation. So Daniel Enrico, he's a principal engineer at the city of Everett in Washington State. He's going to present to us about use of drones for a unique application in bridges. And I was fortunate enough to see this presentation at a bridge maintenance conference a few months ago, and thought it was really interesting. So I'm happy that Daniel is able to join us today and share this. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and then Dan, you can go ahead and take over.
Great, thank you, Blaine. I appreciate this opportunity as well. As I'm sharing my screen, I'll just kind of introduce myself. Again, my name is Daniel Enrico. I have 25 years experience implementing capital improvement projects of various sorts, transportation, utilities projects in the Northwest, and been very fortunate in my career. Are the folks seeing my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So I recently left the city of Seattle in 2022, and I moved up the I-5 corridor about 20 miles to the city of Everett, Washington, where I am the transportation principal. I manage all of the bridges in the city. We're actively reporting to WashDOT regarding the condition of our bridges, etc. I also manage the CIP. We happen to be building a brand new bridge in our town that's getting ready to start here this summer. Always exciting to build new stuff. It's why we do this work, and it's exciting to be part of the important transportation industry. So Everett, Washington, on the West Coast, obviously. We're just up the I-5 corridor from the city of Seattle, although we are distinctly different from Seattle as we like to be. But we're the 6th largest city in the state, so pretty rich history. A lot of our infrastructure is fairly old. And when I came to work here and kind of took over the bridge program, I was touring the bridges, and I happened to notice at this particular Hewitt Avenue bridge that there was an encampment problem that we had on the bridge, and you can see that Hewitt Avenue is one of our primary arterials between I-5 and the downtown core. As a matter of fact, the on-ramp to Highway 2 and access to I-5 is right there. So it's a very important bridge. And it is also important because of the stakeholders and businesses that the bridge serves. And I'm just showing this for a couple of reasons. Number one, you can see the extent of the just the littering and the other encampment issues that go along. You know, the potential fouling of tracks. BNSF and the city of Everett was teaming up, and we were hauling quite a bit of trash out of this location for you know, a decade or more. And I'll kind of show you what the attractant was. And so the railroad, Burlington Northern, was one of our partners here, and I've dealt with Burlington Northern quite a bit in the past on other projects. They were very helpful on this project and were a very good partner. So the bridge was built in 1988, so it's a fairly kind of a youngish bridge. It's in really good condition still. The daily trips are about 8,000. It's 167 foot long, curb to curb, 50 feet, 4 lanes, 10-foot sidewalks. And the important one is the out to out, which is 70 feet or so. And also it carries a 12-inch water main, which is a pretty good sized water main. I had the experience of watching a 12-inch water main fail, and it turned into quite the dredge. When I worked at the city of Seattle, I witnessed that. And of course, it crosses the Burlington Northern tracks. And you can see that I've got it labeled here, Areaway East and Areaway West, in those little red rectangles, and those are kind of the focus of my talk here. And you know, we call them Areaways, and the bridge engineers in the 80s basically provided this corridor on the east and the west abutments that was covered, it was out of the way, it was elevated, you know, 22 or 23 feet above the tracks, and the campers found this to be very prime real estate in terms of homeless encampment, and they used it quite extensively. You can, of course, when I began discussions on the need for this, we utilized multiple drones to ascertain what was inside of those areaways. We also wanted to ascertain at points that there were no campers in there for the safety of our workers. And also we wanted to, you know, document construction, you know, and the quality of construction. So we used these quite extensively, and these are the 3 drones that we used. The one up top there, the RTK, we used in conjunction with law enforcement, and we had a loudspeaker and a strobe on there, and we were letting people know that they needed to remove themselves from the structure, or they would lose their personal belongings. And we did this multiple times just to make sure that our outreach was thorough and correct. I show this picture just because this is the access from above, and this is how the folks would get down into the areaways. You can see this is the southeast entrance to the areaway, and they would jump down over these, actually this is the northwest, sorry. Jump down, you know, it's about a 6 to 7 foot drop from the rail, and then another 5 or 6 feet down to this landing. and that's the entrance to the areaway right there. This is the northwest side, and this is the northeast side. And so many of these folks were drug and alcohol users, and you can just imagine my kind of shock of the liability for both the city and BNSF when I kind of began reviewing these items. And here, this is just a quickie. You know, the southwest corner was probably the most intense occupation. The guy was very aggressive. He had a chain slung around this 12-inch water main, but you can see all four corners, and they had them, you know, barricaded off, and they were really entrenched in these areaways. You can see that they built a partition there with a door that's on the southeast side. It was quite elaborate. The gentleman over here had a solar setup with multiple car batteries, so he had electricity in there. There's a little better shot of his encampment. You can see the water main with the chain and the sling that he used. He was in really good shape. He could get up and down off there, which I witnessed many times. You'd get up and down off there pretty quickly. And so you can see it was a very difficult situation for the city with all the risk. BNSF, they had considerable risk as well with train tracks being fouled. They used BNSF literally as their kind of their dumping site. So this is one of the videos that we used, a drone kind of in the beginning. We're trying to ascertain what the conditions are there. You can see the openings along that that pier there. It's approximately a 2-foot opening. The campers use that basically as a disposal pit from everything from human waste to just garbage. You can see the garbage down below there. And it was a real source of, you know, kind of resource drain for both BNSF and the city of Everett. We were cleaning this stuff up constantly, maybe BNSF more than us. But, you know, that just gives you an idea of kind of how the process started. I hope that video went smoothly there. And that was the east side. This is kind of the west side that we're looking, and I show this because you can see the underside, you know, and how they were using it to just, you know, throw stuff down, but they also kind of used, you know, items to bridge it, and I believe they were using it for storage and sleeping, and it was really just quite the mess. And so the puzzle was, how do we secure this? Yeah, that's the west side, and you can see the water main there. And the water main really was a big item in my mind because, you know, swinging on that water main, well, it's not its intended use, but it would be very dangerous if that were to break. It would basically dredge out the abutments, and you can see that this bridge was built on these beautiful granite abutments from the previous bridge that were utilized there. These were huge pieces of granite. It was really, I mean, I was a fan. It's gorgeous stuff, but it was an untenable situation for our city from a risk perspective. And also just the complexity. We needed to work with, of course, our internal public works, you know, our public outreach and operations, our safety folks. We worked with the City of Everett Police, City of Everett Fire, first responders, and we also had BNSF Security and BNSF, this is the railroad operations, who actually offered to help pay for some of this. This is how, you know, difficult it was for BNSF to manage the situations there. And so the fix was really quite simple. We wanted to pour concrete on all four corners, provide entry hatches at 2 of the corners, and then put infill grading at the open areas. And we did that so that we maybe could avoid a confined space entry. We were mitigating several risks. You know, I kind of talked about it. Injuries was the first thing, and first responders. BNSF tracks were fouled actually quite frequently. And then, of course, that 12-inch water main. And we had a company up here, Trantech Design, do the design for us, and I elected to use a jock contractor just because we needed to have expediency in this. And they had two very good subs, Combined Construction, specialty structural construction folks. They do a lot of bridge work up here. And Leyland Construction, who's become quite famous on the West Coast for their encampment cleanup. They've gone to California to do some big encampment cleanup. So I felt like we had the right team on the job. It was a big site. They had access. It was about, I don't know, 1,500 feet away. And they had to walk up the tracks. And whenever there was a train coming, we had to get off the tracks. And so it was a very big site. So for the contractor to deal with. And just to get to the punchline, contractor, we had got it all cleaned out, and the contractor did a very good job pouring those curtain walls. You can see that all four corners had concrete out front. We did the hatches. You can see that the grading went in nicely. They tack welded on top of that angle. It was very substantial. And we were hoping that that was going to take care of it. And of course, we were wrong. 3 months later, we had discovered a breach. The campers had taken a pallet rack and broken out the grating. And 3 months later, they had basically re-inhabited. We kind of went through the same process with outreach, basically saying everybody must leave. And this was the smaller drone. I forget the model, the DJI drone. It's very useful in this type of situation. The operator was using VR goggles, and he was able to guide this through. This is obviously after we had basically kind of chased everybody out. We were kind of ready to deal with this, but it was just impressive to me, you know, how they had kind of quickly and very discreetly, you know, they managed to hide it for 2 or 3 months. They were pretty careful of it. This is the east side, and in a moment we'll see the west side. I could probably let's see. I could move it over to the west side. It fell down there. Oops. This is the west side, and I wanted to. There's one thing on this side that I wanted to just kind of point out. You can see that this side again, they really had brought a lot of trash up in there, and they're a very determined group that made their homes up here. I was a little bit of the strongest, you know, young male type campers got to live up in here. But you'll see that we're approaching a frame there, and that frame has a pulley on it. And so, you know, you can see that they really were intent on, you know, bringing all their possessions up in there. And it was disheartening. I'll get to the end. I'll talk about the budget, but, you know, this was not you know, an inexpensive or a quick fix, mainly because of the outreach. You know, when we confiscate camping materials, you know, city and state law requires us to store things of value. So this was it was disappointing at this time. However, we had enough in place now that we were able to utilize City of Everett crews. Worked with those guys. We decided that we really didn't need access to those areaways very often, and then we put these frames over the hatches, and we also went ahead and welded 1 1/8 inch plate steel under those grates, and really just completely sealed this off. I don't know if that's too loud for you guys. Turn it down a touch. Yeah, but you can see that we literally just welded on top of that angle, continuous weld, 1/8 inch steel all the way down. That's the east side. As you can see, the concrete on the south end of that east side. And then on the west side, similar, you can see the frame up there. And our guys actually, once the concrete and the angle iron was up there for us to weld to, our guys, I think, did this in 2 weeks. Took about 5 working days per side. And they did beautiful work for us. The crews did. So you get the picture, I think. So, you know, kind of our lessons learned. These are things that I kind of knew throughout my years of working in our agency tasks and projects. And you need to capture the agency partners, get them in, get consensus. We had multiple coordination meetings on this project that included police, fire, everything else. We needed to secure this bridge and mitigate the risks. It took quite a few months. Much of that was just getting the budget together. You know, we're not a real large city, and I'm sure everybody in this room understands that transportation funding does not come cheaply, and we needed to get the funding in place to secure the bridge, and that's why it was really disheartening that those campers had made it back up in there. Working with stakeholders, any new bridges, we need to make sure there's nowhere for the campers to set up. And we really took the outreach to the camping population seriously. We spent many weeks just being out there and letting people know that this change was coming, so that the optics were well received. You know, this was an essential piece of infrastructure, and we were going to secure it, and that's all there is to that. So I, you know, got a chance down in Oregon to talk about what other agencies were experiencing. Turns out this is a pretty universal problem, and you know, if anybody feels the need to reach out to chat with me, share ideas if you've got similar experiences. The drones were absolutely essential in this situation to understand the scope for the contractor, to understand the safety, the safety issues for our staff, for BNSF staff, for our first responders, and really just a wonderful use of that technology. And we're using that more and more to kind of track where homeless encampments are popping up. So that is the extent of my my presentation. And if anybody has any comments or questions, I'm more than willing to entertain that.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dan.
No worries.
Really interesting. Definitely a great use of drones for this application. Asset owners, this is definitely something that we, don't expect to contend with, but is definitely a reality for many of us. So
Yeah.
it's great that you're able to deploy that technology and use that to kind of streamline this process and identify solutions. So yeah, does anyone have any questions for Dan from our audience?
I don't know if my audio is working any better now than it was, but you used an acronym JOC. What does that mean?
Oh, it's job order contracting. It's a contract, just a way to, a contractor was already hired by the city. I just needed to provide him a work order. So it was a very expeditious way of getting a contract in place, which is always a challenge in government.
Yeah.
So
Cool. And then my other question was about the small drone that you were using.
yes.
So you're flying that in an incline of it. So it I don't know. Do you guys fly under like the Part 107 rules, or how do you
Yes.
do beyond visual line of sight inside something like that, or um, how did your safety folks probably figure out that that was okay?
Well, I mean, the outreach was important, so we always made sure that for at least a couple days in advance, we let the folks know that we're going to be coming in. So we never really encountered any campers, and we had pretty good line of sight communications with the drones. I think that one time it kind of fell over, and yeah, we're all the 107 certified, and from just on top of the overpass, everything seemed to work fine. Yeah, I'm not sure if I answered your question, but
I think so. You basically you probably had some visual observers that were watching it as well as
oh, absolutely, yeah, there was
hiding it with the VR helmet, because normally you can't.
yeah, there were probably 6 or 7 people standing around watching everything go on. It was
Because I've thought the same thing about doing some of our bridge inspections here. You get up underneath it and you get those close quarters. It'd be much better to be able to put it in first person view, see what the drone is seeing, rather than sitting on the ground trying to judge how far you are away from any of those structural elements. So
yeah, I haven't had the opportunity to use that drone. That was the let's see, that was the little guy.
Probably the Avata.
Yeah, it was the Avata. I'm sorry, and I haven't had a chance to fly that myself. Our engineering resource guy is kind of, he's keeping that under wraps. He likes that thing. I have looked in it, and it's, the control that he has with that drone is really amazing. The DJI, that we obviously own a few of these drones now, and the DJI drones seem to be really good. I hope they don't do the complete ban, but yeah, that Avata is nice and pretty reasonably. I think all in it was like under $8,000 or something like that for that drone. And he gets about 45 minutes out of a battery. So
May I ask how deep it was in that tunnel when they were doing the inside work with the Avata? Because I was trying to figure out how deep it ended up going. Or did you have people also inside the structure while you were flying it too? Because I'm trying to figure out the lost link potential.
they were not inside. So from where he was standing on top of the bridge, the length of the areaways is about 72 feet.
Okay.
And so it seemed to reach pretty good into there. Even with concrete on either side, it seemed to get in there pretty good with that one.
That's what I was curious about, is if there was any lost link concern due to the thickness of the concrete. Because it wouldn't
we're
actually be a
good.
BV loss opportunity because it's not technically in the NAS. But I'm sure there was a lot of concern on your guys' part for safety because, even though you guys did a considerable amount of outreach, I would speculate that they're not exactly thrilled with you being in there, what they perceive to be their domain.
Yes, that's absolutely true. They were not happy. Yeah, we heard many complaints and some aggression as well. But it's just too that water main was just too ridiculous to have people swinging off of. But yeah, that drone was a champ. I was surprised.
Really appreciate the presentation. This was really enlightening.
Yeah, no worries. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. And I guess I'll just sign off now and maybe listen in for a while.
Yeah, thanks again, Dan. Really appreciate your contribution there. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and
No worries.
share my screen again, and we'll get back to our agenda. So as part of our meetings, we usually try to have a segment where we have open discussion on some relevant topics in the drone field. And one that's really been notable to discuss lately is the CCP Drones Act, or effectively the proposed DJI drone ban that is currently being discussed at the national level. So I thought this was a notable one to bring up. I know that, obviously there's many other drone manufacturers out there, but DJI, I think, is pretty ubiquitous throughout all of the industry in the U.S. and abroad. I know that at least at my agency, we use DJI products. Also, our other branches of the county, first responders, law enforcement also use DJI, and I know that's the case for several other agencies that we correspond with. So, yeah, I think I just wanted to highlight this issue. So this CCP Drones Act, countering CCP Drones Act, is part of the National Defense Authorization Act, which is currently moving to the House for a vote. And so that's a really interesting kind of pivotal moment for this whole proposed action. Ultimately, if this goes through, it will revoke the FCC approval of DJI drones. It will most definitely ban any more sales of new DJI drones in the United States. But it may revoke the existing approvals of current DJI drones that are in people's fleets. So that would effectively render these equipments useless. You wouldn't have any of the necessary communications functions that are needed to operate a drone. So, and kind of in my review of this topic, it seems like it's related to the DJI flight logging, which is using your user data and photos and flight information for each and every flight that you're making with a DJI product, which is uploaded to DJI's servers, which are located in China. So there's some privacy concerns about this data and what that might mean essentially for national security. So that's kind of the background of it. I think that in response to this, DJI has recently announced that they're going to disable flight log syncing in the United States, which is kind of a phased approach, but I think it's ultimately going to become fully effective on the 27th of this month, so very soon. And that will mean that if agencies or drone users are wanting to keep flight records, they have to find an alternate method to do that, which I know there's several third-party applications to do that that exist. So it's not a total deal breaker, but I think that ultimately, given how many DJI products, drones particularly, are are being used nationwide right now. It's pretty significant. There's obviously some pluses and minuses to this. So positives being, improved national security and placing a little bit more emphasis on domestic manufacturing of drones and drone components, which is ultimately a good thing. But yeah, negatives, like I said, it's going to disrupt a lot of UAS operations for US users nationwide. It'll make existing equipment basically useless if they decide to make it retroactive to already existing DJI products. And it'd cause for agencies and drone users and private and public sectors to upgrade their equipment and purchase a new fleet. So that's a pretty big expenditure when you're thinking about if there's, larger agencies that have several drones that can be tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. So ultimately, I just wanted to introduce this topic. I don't know if anyone else in here, I know there's a lot of drone users that might have opinions or additional information. So I thought I would just kind of open it up for discussion and see if anyone else has any insight here. So.
This is Colin Brooks from Michigan Tech. I mean, this is an issue I've been following closely. Michigan DOT is a big user of DJI drones. The language to add this to the NDAA passed 57-1 through the appropriate committee. So it's part of the base language of the NDAA now. So it seems very likely to pass, although see what's in the U.S. Senate version that goes to conference. I was just reading an article that it doesn't necessarily automatically apply to current DJI drones, which is a wrinkle that I had not realized. Certainly some of the politicians backing it are acting as if they wanted to apply to existing DJI drones, but that's not an automatic requirement, which is interesting to see. I mean, I've been treating this as the writing on the wall that agencies and research groups need to start looking at alternatives to the extent that they exist, but one of the frustrating things is, at least for the Mavic 2 and 3 series, there haven't really been U.S. or non-Chinese made alternatives at a reasonable price point. So it still appears to likely have a huge impact.
Yeah, I agree,
I'm with
Colin.
Colin. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt. Keep going.
Oh, I was just gonna say that, yeah, the Mavic 2 and 3 seem like the workhorse for a lot of folks, and so losing those from fleets would be pretty detrimental to, I think, to most. But sorry, go ahead, Brian.
No, you're right. And to reiterate what Colin said, this has been on our radar for a long time. And a year ago now, we actually went away from our all DJI fleet. It's kind of tough, at least for Kansas DOT, to be a member of the FAA's exclusive Beyond program for UAS integration and potentially have our fleet grounded. My birds have to fly, so we went ahead and bit the bullet and spent the money to go away from DJI just because while expensive, and Colin's exactly right, the price point is definitely different cost benefit wise than DJI. But at the same time, to be able to get ROI, a more expensive aircraft that flies is better than a cheap one that beautiful aircraft as far as functionality is concerned. Being grounded has an ROI of 0. So we had to go ahead and pull the trigger and get away from Chinese gear. But again, as a Beyond LP, my partners in public safety are really scared about this. We had state legislation that almost passed, and our governor vetoed it, frankly, just because it was vaguely worded at the last minute, and it would have actually grounded DJI gear in our state. And I feel that Colin's right. This writing's been on the wall for a while, and we can't really do anything about it other than just ride the wave and deal with what the reality is. If we like it or not, it's pretty clear it's coming down the pike.
Hello, can you guys hear me? This is Jason Miller.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Loud
Great.
and clear.
Hi. Again, my name is Jason Miller. I work with the Army Corps of Engineers, and I'm a UAS pilot. We've been in compliance, the NDAA compliance, since 2016. And initially, when we started the program around 2014, our entire fleet was grounded because of this. And so we've had to go through these growing pains, and they have been painful. But there are plenty of products out there. They aren't at the price point that these DJIs are. And that was part of the problem. Like, DJI saturated the market with these because they knew that they were collecting information. And but there's excellent. We use the Skydio X2D for our rotary wing, and the Wingtra model Gen 2 for fixed wing applications, and those are NDAA compliant. Over.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. I mean, and with Blaine and Brian and Colin all saying that this is all writing on the wall. The only thing that I wanted to do from my agency was I noticed that as soon as this talk got pretty serious about this drone ban happening for the Chinese drones, it seems like the Skydios overnight went from that $2,000 or $3,000 price point to worth of 10. So I'd really like my legislators, and that's what I've put in letters to them, that we perhaps need to kind of somehow avoid the price gouging that might happen as kind of one of the unexpected consequences of this legislation.
Yeah, well, I think it's a relevant topic, and I'm glad to hear other folks' opinions as well, because I think it's something that we're all going to want to watch out for. And that's not to say that DJI drones are better than any other particular product. I definitely want to diversify our fleet at my agency, but I think it's important just to keep a pulse on this and see how it plays out, because as far as implementations of drones for transportation-related purposes, it may cause some ripples and some issues for some of us. So I think we got someone who would like to try and mute background audio here. But yeah, definitely, I think that no matter your opinion on this, whether you're for or against, reaching out to your local legislators to voice your opinion is probably the best way to kind of let your opinion be heard on behalf of your organization. So yeah, no, I think that was a great discussion on this issue. And yeah, I think we've got extra time in our agenda. So if anyone else has any other relevant topics that they might want to bring up, feel free.
I mean, just as an example of what we're doing on our end as a public research university, for our most recent federally funded project, funded by Fish and Wildlife Service, we bought an AFI USA, $7,000, and its thermal camera is not as good as the equivalent Mavic, and I'm trying to mount a multispectral camera on so I can recreate the capabilities of the DJI Mavic 3 multispectral, which is nice and integrated, because there isn't a less than $10,000 multispectral multi-rotor equivalent right now to what DJI is selling. So we're putting together our own solution there to continue some of our low-cost multispectral work. So that's an interesting, at least for me, an interesting capability where we're trying to hedge our bets a bit. On the large drone list, where there is more competition to DJI, a lot of people are just automatically going and buying off the Blue UAS list, which was not really the intention of the Blue UAS list. That was for DoD requirements, which are not the same thing as transportation agency, civil engineering, and inspection requirements. So there's, I think, education that needs to be made about between the difference between NDAA compliant and Blue UAS, and how those are not the same thing, and people don't have to buy off the Blue UAS list to be NDAA compliant. That being said, I'm probably buying a free fly Alta X for my next one, because we do both DoD and non-DoD research, and having one large platform that can meet both research needs is important to us. Skydio was filling a niche sort of for lower cost UAS. You know, their original Skydio 2 was about $1,100. Didn't have as good of a camera as the Mavic 2 and 3 series, but it was great on the AI-enabled collision avoidance. But Skydio is stopped selling that to general public, although I understand you can still special order large numbers from them, and some transportation agencies are doing that. The new platform, I think the X10D that has the enhanced collision avoidance, I can't find a price for it online, but I saw a couple posts that it's about 18,000. So to buy the next Skydio platform costs a lot more than buying the DJI platform. So that's another area we're looking at. And then we've also looked at things like the Aurelia series, which is NDAA compliant, that has some good mid-size multi-rotor ones as another solution. So those are some things that we're all looking at as we try to diversify our fleet.
Yeah, that's a great point, Colin. The Blue UAS, that's something that's been thrown out quite a bit. I also was reading about Green UAS recently, which is basically a similar thing, but it has more to do with tracking the supply chain of the components of the drone. And it sounds like that hasn't been heavily adopted by manufacturers yet, but that may be in the future, and maybe that will be a better resource for people as sort of like a buyer's guide for some of this equipment. So
if it lives up to its promise, it should help and be a kind of a larger resource than people just automatically going to the Blue UAS list again, which is very specifically for the Department of Defense. And at least at the last Transportation Research Board meeting, there was a good paper about misuse of the Blue UAS list. But I also understand how people go, well, that's nice and safe to buy, so I'm just going to go buy one of those. I mean, it's a shortcut, but from a practical point of view, the equivalents of the Mavic 2 and Mavic 3 series don't exist with the same capabilities and the same price point. Now, you know, I can see there's the Anzu robotics ones where DJI has licensed their technology to a company that's going to be manufacturing them in Malaysia and using US-made software to control them. And their equivalent of the Mavic 3 thermal is $7,700, whereas the Mavic 3 thermal is $5,500. So the price point's not too bad there. But at least when some of the politicians behind the Countering CCP Drones Act were being interviewed, they want it to be applied to companies like that, but we'll see what happens.
Honestly, like so many things aviation, it comes down to risk tolerance, and this is no exception. Do people really want to go ahead and roll the dice? And if so, at what price point? Is $7,000 willing to be risked? Is 10,000? And that's very situational and contextual. And I frankly don't think that there is a Solomon's correct answer on this. It's just individually what people are able to do. We want a particular direction. But to your point too about the blue list becoming a proxy for anti-DJI, you're 100% right. That's so out of scope for what it is. DIU created it for a totally different purpose. And Blaine, you're 100% right about the green list, that was created effectively by FAA by proxy with AUVSI. It's looking for some means for the market to coalesce over supply chain to say, this is safe. It's not going to get grounded. And it's a really hard thing. And I feel that we're not all the way out, even if there is a ban.
And I saw that Chris Clancy sent a link to the an article there, and it leads off with the Anzu robotics. Again, we're going to have to see what it's a neat way around the DJI effective ban, but and their Raptor T thermal certainly looks like is again essentially the same as the Mavic 3 thermal, but I don't know what's going to happen in terms of interpretation of the Countering CCP Drones Act with that particular solution. It's certainly something I'm looking at buying as an alternative, but again, when the primary author behind this act, at least Stefanik, was asked specifically about Anzu robotics, she responded with saying that she ought to cover that situation as well, but that's not the same thing as how things will get actually interpreted.
So true. And you know that as an institution of academia, you traditionally are given more purview than those that inspect infrastructure, particularly critical infrastructure. And so it's a really hard one. Kansas State
Yep.
University is a partner of ours, and they, of course, are a center of excellence for sure.
Yep.
And it's really tricky on this. And I think it once again shows that there is no one size fits all. And again, it's splitting hairs, and I don't really want to look in tea leaves either to know. So it's a tricky deal. And I'm really glad that Blaine brought this up because it's been on the radar for a while, and I feel it's really coming to a head.
Yeah, and there's a related act which is about first responders' use of drones as well, where the Congress's intent is to make some money available for first responders to buy non-DJI drones, but I haven't seen it. It's called the Drones for First Responders Act, but again, I don't think there's a plan to fully purchase new fleets for police and fire departments that have purchased these, let alone obviously transportation departments. I mean, the latest one resource I use a lot is SUAS News, and today's article says, you know, essentially stop panicking because it doesn't automatically get applied to existing DJI drones, which again is the first take I've seen saying that. But again, it's still a lot of bet hedging since exactly the language that'll make it in there, and then what happens when it undoubtedly gets a legal challenge remains to be seen, or what happens with when Congress actually passes NDAA. But certainly I think everybody should at least be looking at alternatives, and you know, maybe the intended design here of developing the U.S. drone industry more will result in us having access to better drones at reasonable price points, but the transition might be a little ugly.
Excellent discussion. We greatly appreciate your active participation on this topic. And are there any other questions, comments from our audience? I'm not hearing anything. So what did we have next, Blaine? Yeah. So and again, you know, this was one of our quarterly meetings. We will continue to have these meetings. Next one is going to be virtual, and you know, sometime in upcoming months. And again, we continue to send emails, calendar invitations. And if you joined our meeting late and would like to receive emails from us, announcements, please write down your name and affiliation and email address in the chat box, and we will include you in our future committee correspondence. So as I mentioned earlier, we target about 4 meetings in a year on quarterly basis. So next one is going to be, again, fully virtual. And then, we're going to continue to have meetings during the TRV annual meeting. That's going to be in January 2025. And again, that will be another virtual meeting after that. And after that, next one, we're going to be again having a ICTD 2025 meeting in a hybrid format similar to this one. And that's going to be in Arizona, June next year. And just wait for an email announcement from ASCE staff on this. And again, we also do send out announcements. There will be opportunities for you to contribute a paper presentation. We organized 2 sessions this year. We had a total of 8 presentations yesterday and today in Atlanta, Georgia. And we had some fantastic presentations. And again, if you're, they're doing some interesting work with use of UAS technologies, please let us know, and would love to hear from you and see some paper and presentation contributions for upcoming meetings and conferences. So.
Yeah, so continuing to cap it off, we like to get people involved in our committee. It makes for more meaningful discussions of these type of things. So encourage you to check out our website and become a committee member if you're not already. We have 2 different tiers of membership, full voting membership and associate membership. So with that, that kind of allows you to become a committee officer if you'd like, if you have a full voting membership. We do have positions available for leadership within the committee as we continue to expand. So committee activity director will assist us with outreach to our mailing lists for these type of events. And we're always looking for assistance in that regard, especially as we continue to get more of a presence in this space. So if you're interested, please reach out to us at our committee email account or any of the officers individually. So. And then, yeah, just kind of capping off our presentation. I think this was really successful. We had a great presentation from a notable colleague of implementation of drones, as well as some great discussions. So really successful meeting, in my opinion. Please join us online via LinkedIn. We have a UAS committee LinkedIn page. It's very easy to find, so please connect with us to kind of stay in the loop on the latest committee business. As I mentioned previously, committee membership and leadership positions, reach out to us with inquiries pertaining to those. We have a committee website on the ASCE webpage. The easiest way to find that is just to Google search the ASCE UAS committee. And we also value the input of our meeting participants. So there's a QR code on the screen here. Please scan that with your smartphone if you wish to provide any feedback to us that can help us make these more useful in the future. So yeah, any other final thoughts from you, Halil, or anyone else?
So again, we greatly appreciate our colleagues, active participation today. And as you can see, we are actually attracting good number of people. I think this virtual and hybrid meeting format has been working really well for our committee. As Blaine mentioned, there are opportunities for you to be part of the committee leadership team. If you're interested in, please reach out to us, and with more, help and assistance, we can continue to provide good presentations and content to our ZADA members. And thank you again for attending today's meeting. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you for your active participation. And again, we had another outstanding presentation as part of today's meeting. Thank you. So we're not hearing from anyone else. This concludes today's meeting, and thank you again for your active participation, and we look forward to being with you next time. Thank you and stay well.